Hello everyone, playing a bit of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Taking a no attachment M4 out to play on Rust, I talk about the concept of UBI, or Universal Basic Income. The general idea behind it is a universal income provided by the government after you turn voting age, generally, that would, in theory, raise everyone above the poverty level. In the US, that'd be about $1,000 a month. There has been increased support for UBI in both sides of the political aisle, as there's both people on the left and the right who support the idea for differing reasons. Now, there is two basic reasons people on the left tend to favor it, as it is seen as redistributing the wealth of various companies or taxed groups within the country to lower income families, allowing them to better support themselves. The other left support for it would come from the fact that effectively it would be assisting many communities currently living in poverty, bringing them to or above the poverty level. The conservative viewpoint for supporting it is that it is effectively, if you pay for it via a land use or a corporate tax, you are simply allowing people to take money and after it's paid to them, decide what companies they want to reinvest that money in, giving people the economic freedom to provide more business to companies they like or have simply good business practices, and take it away from companies that perform poorly in the market. As with the tax, part of the profits of those companies is redistributed to individuals, and those individuals then decide if they want to reinvest it in that company through their purchasing power, or they decide to invest it in another company via, again, their purchasing power. Another reason that is shared by both conservatives and left-leaning individuals is the fact that with increases in automation driving down the costs of labor, eventually you'll reach a point that many people in society will just not be able to find work. And by using universal basic income, individuals without work can continue to invest in the economy, and thus buy back into UBI. Oh dear, there's definitely stuff going on around here. Need to be a bit more cautious on learning without any attachments. Oh dear. However, support for UBI does vary, as many people I know supported that specifically a number of feminists argument for it is that in providing $1,000 per month or more, raising women above the poverty level, they have increased power in the economy and thus are less dependent on their male counterparts. Then, their feminist argument against it, as there are those who support and oppose it, is that women who receive universal basic income are less likely to participate. However, that comes down to a person-to-person basis. Some people will decide just to live off of UBI, while other people will decide to reinvest it immediately and continue to work. Even if an individual does decide to work less, by them constantly reinvesting that tax that they are receiving, the universal basic income, oh dear, they're trying to round that corner. The individual receiving it, even if they choose to live off of it, will still be investing it back into the economy. So it's not like it's simply disappearing. Although, on the right, opposition to it is usually centered around the libertarian ideal that you should not be taxing companies to begin with, instead letting people decide who to invest in directly. And then, oh dear, I really got around over here. Had to change out my M4 to something a bit more suited to this type of match. Oh dear, oh dear. What we have here is one of the primary arguments against UBI is that it is taking some of the profits of these companies and redistributing it, which many libertarians oppose. Although some libertarians, via land use tax, do support the idea of UBI, particularly geo-libertarians. They support UBI if it's used provided via a land use tax, although their program does have other requirements, although that would require its own video. A similar concept is a reverse income tax, a variant of which I do support, but that is going to be its own video, as it has its own unique history and setup. Oh dear, oh dear. They are determined to get through this route. Many people who argue against the sale only encourage bad behavior. However, from the various studies I could find, it seems to be mixed. Some people did reinforce bad habits, while a sizable portion of society did not, continuing on with their lives or even seeking to improve themselves by using the money provided in the surveys and tests, desiring to see themselves see more education. As one of the arguments for UBI is it would allow for people to invest in their education. However, that does vary from person to person, as does all things. Two people can be similar, but they are never the same. Then, there's the idea against it that by providing people universal basic income is that you are effectively causing them to become dependent on the government. Effectively ensuring that, effectively consider it buying votes. My pardon, I got distracted there dealing with his problems in front of me. Oh dear, that is a VTOL, and I am not set up to deal with that VTOL. So I just need to find a defensive position and dig in. The general idea, and the reason why I support it, is I do feel more often than not, people will invest in themselves in one way or another. And even if they do decide to live off of UBI, they will be still investing it back into the economy. Because if they're living off of it, they have to spend it to live off of it. Oh dear, oh dear. I went down there, got a little bit greedy. The UBI is quite an interesting topic that's received support from both sides, although there are many detractors on both sides of the political aisle. The reason, as previously I supported, is regardless if they choose to live off of it or not, people will still be investing it back into the economy. So it's not like it's simply disappearing into their bank accounts. Another argument against it, under that same vine, is the fact that it would be going to people with high incomes as well. It's why some individuals suggest UBI programs that are simply a basic income rather than a UBI. It's universal only for people below a certain pay threshold. Oh dear, oh dear. Under those circumstances, it's usually just simply referred to as basic income. Although many would argue that that would be unfair, and that's why it must be provided to everyone. Because even those individuals with a higher income receiving UBI, they are still paying taxes nonetheless. They are still providing investment back into the economy. As such, there is no reason to deny them that other than personal prejudice against them. And with a small UBI, such as $1,000 a month, or as I supported, just a touch more, you would see, effectively, here, let me check this corner real quick. Oh dear. I don't see why these care packages keep dropping on me every time I call an emergency airdrop. No matter where I move and how far away I am from it. Oh dear, oh dear. Let me move around to try to get my packages. Personally, if I were to receive UBI, I would happily invest it in education, but I am a bit of a bookworm. So, I wouldn't mind living my life on a university in perpetual searching of new degrees. However, I do seek to contribute back to my community, so that's why I do get out and volunteer for various events in my area from time to time. Personally, though, what one does with UBI does come down to the individual, which seems to me to be constantly lost in the argument about it, whether you be for or against. Even if someone does decide to live off of it, they will be paying it back into the economy. Oh dear, oh dear. I need to be a bit more mobile here. One issue that might arise with UBI is depending on how you pay for it. If you pay for it via income tax, then there's a strong argument against it in that you are simply redistributing the wealth of individuals who have been successful with their lives. However, it largely comes down to circumstance on that matter, which is why there's strong resistance from it on the right. However, as previously stated, there are a large number of individuals on the right that also support UBI. However, UBI is an interesting topic, although hardly can be fully described with the various attributes of it in a single short video. I do support UBI, and I'd like to thank you for your time as this round closes out. Alrighty then. Let's see how well I did. Oh dear, went down in the can. Alright. Thank you for your time, and see everyone around.